A very good evening, Zimbabwe. Welcome to Live Talk. We're coming to you live from Studio 7 at the Voice of America in Washington this Friday, March the 3rd, 2023. I'm your host, Marvelous Mhlanganyahuye. And tonight on Live Talk, we're looking at U.S. and Russian top officials visiting Zimbabwe at the same time. U.S. top diplomat Robert Scott and Russian regional foreign affairs minister are in Zimbabwe meeting government officials. Nasi tiri kutarisa nyaya yekushanya kwenhumwa huru dzinobva kuAmerica neRussia idzo dziri munyika pari zvino. Ambassador Robert Scott ndivo vakamirira America, ukuwo Russia yakamirirwa negurukota redunhu rinoona nezvekudyidzana nedzimwe nyika vaYanchelaz Yarin. The top U.S. diplomat, Ambassador Robert Scott, held a round-table meeting with journalists in Harare, where he said America will support institutions and processes that are geared to make sure that the country's elections to be held this year are conducted peacefully and fairly. He said the U.S. will also support free and open media and non-governmental organizations that promote voter rights. He's expected to meet with some of the country's political parties tonight. Let's hear what he had to say at today's roundtable meeting with journalists.
Our engagement and about our collaboration as countries and as peoples. Specifically here, obviously, at the front of everybody's minds currently in Zimbabwe is the election. Our embassy is also looking at that in order to support the institutions that will make the elections successful. We do not support politicians, we do not support parties, we support institutions and processes. And so I'm partly here to talk to and did speak yesterday with the Minister of Foreign Affairs, with the Minister of Justice, with other government representatives in a meeting yesterday, covering also the election process, covering the PVO bill, which we share some of the concerns that have been expressed by others, and I expressed also our thinking about the PVO bill and had an exchange at the meeting yesterday. We are also, our embassy here is participating in the current AFDB debt arrears process, which is potentially a very powerful tool for the government to engage. And it's also a powerful tool for civil society and other organizations to be pulled into a process which will be fundamental and important for the economy of this country to re-engage, to reopen to international lending.
A Russian delegation led by a regional foreign affairs minister, Vyacheslav Yarin, held meetings in Harare assuring Zimbabweans that the war between Russia and Ukraine will not affect Russia's relationship with Zimbabwe. Midlands resident Minister Larry Mavima also talked about the importance of Russian investments in Zimbabwe. Let's hear what he had to say.
Furthermore, the Second Republic has also launched several economic reforms towards stabilizing the economy and improving the ease of doing business in the country. To date, the results of these initiatives have been tremendous. It is also vital to underscore that Zimbabwe at large, and the Midlands province in particular, boasts of massive natural and other economic endowments, and therefore welcome investment into all productive sectors so as to boost sustained economic growth. An outline of the abundant business opportunities in the country and in Midlands particularly will be presented shortly during the meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, I greatly appreciate your attendance to this meeting. To our guests, I wish you a pleasant stay and fruitful tour of duty in Zimbabwe.
Meanwhile, China is slamming a decision by the Biden administration to approve a US $619 million potential arms sale to Taiwan that includes hundreds of missiles for F-16 fighter jets. Tensions are high between Washington and Beijing amid Western fears that Beijing may supply weapons to help Russia win its war in Ukraine. White House Bureau Chief Patsy Widakuswara has this report.
Taiwanese F-16 fighter jets will receive hundreds of missiles and related equipment under a proposed $619 million arms sales that Congress was notified of by the Biden administration this week. The move is a violation of Chinese sovereignty, said Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning.
美国声称尊重领土主权。
The U.S. claims to respect territorial sovereignty, but it has walked on the edge, pushed the envelope, and violated its commitment to the Taiwan issue, and even sold advanced weapons to China's Taiwan region.
Foreign military sales are usually state to state, but the administration says the proposal, likely to pass Congress with bipartisan support, is consistent with the Taiwan Relations Act. The law allows Washington to sell weapons to Taiwan to maintain a sufficient self-defense against China. Beijing considers the self-governing island a breakaway province. Taipei's representative in the U.S. says they appreciate U.S. commitment to strengthening Taiwan's self-defense. The trade lobby group U.S.-Taiwan Business Council says that the administration is trying to build munition stocks in case of a Chinese blockade of the island.
Taiwan has to be supplied through the air or the sea, and if the PLA is disrupting access through the air and the sea, it's problematic to provide munitions. So we have to pre-position as much as we possibly can on the island.
The administration denies that the sale will put further strain on the U.S. defense industry, which is struggling to supply munitions to Ukraine as it defends itself against Russia's aggression.
Arms sales is a whole different process and methodology than what we're doing for Ukraine, which is largely through presidential drawdown authority, where you're basically taking stuff that are already on your shelves and providing it to Ukraine directly. So it's a completely different process, different system altogether.
The proposed sale further inflames heightened tensions with Beijing amid Western fears that China is considering providing weapons to help Russia's war in Ukraine and the growing ties between Moscow and Beijing. Earlier this week, China rolled out the red carpet for Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko, a close Russian ally.
Might China try to send some type of armament to Belarus? If so, the line between going to Belarus and to Russia is a very fine one.
A meeting between Chinese President Xi Jinping and Russian leader Vladimir Putin is also planned. Patsy Widakuswara, VOA News at the White House.
Let's now take a short break. Please don't go away. We'll be right back.
In times of change, when the world seems uncertain and what we hear doesn't reflect what we see, we seek the truth. When we are told only part of the story, we lose trust. In moments of crisis, our dreams, hopes, and wishes for a better tomorrow depends on a free press. At Voice of America, we bring you the stories that people take risks to see. We connect the world and unite it with truth. At Voice of America, we show you the whole picture.
For those that have just joined us, please note that we are streaming live on our Facebook pages, VOA Shona, VOA Studio 7, and VOA Ndebele. And we're also live on YouTube, VOA Zimbabwe. For perspective, we are now joined by our guest. I understand right now we have on Skype Tawanda Jokora of the Citizens Coalition for Change, while we wait for Mr. Xavier Zaware of ZANU-PF. Welcome to the program, Mr. Jokora. Please tell us your view. We see the United States has sent an envoy to Zimbabwe, and also Russia has an envoy to Zimbabwe. What's your take as the opposition?
Thank you, Marvelous. Makadi Murie Zimbabwe yakateerera. I think we are seeing once again the commitment of the United States of America to Zimbabwe. The embassy of the USA has been working with business people in Zimbabwe, and we are now seeing a senior official, a top official, being dispatched from Washington, D.C. to Zimbabwe, which to all of us should be a good thing, because good relations between Zimbabwe and America, it's a good thing to the country. It's a good thing to the people of Zimbabwe. After all, USA has been the biggest, donor to everything that has been happening in Zimbabwe, in terms of, the people of Zimbabwe, giving help, giving assistance and solidarity to the people of Zimbabwe. It's unfortunate that we have ZANU-PF officials, castigating America, that they're trying to do regime change. And we also heard from the diplomat there that they do not support political parties. They do not support individuals. They support institutions, which means ZEC as an institution of democracy is actually going to benefit from this visit. They are prepared to support our elections. They are prepared to support ZEC. So there is no reason really why ZEC should be not having more registration points all over the country. We should be having voter registration blitz everywhere. We should actually be having them every month. Now, the last voter registration blitz was in October. Now we're expecting another one, which ZEC has not announced, because they were saying they don't have enough funds. The funds are being made available. You saw Japan coming in with the funds to ZEC. So we call upon the Zimbabwean government to make sure that the people of Zimbabwe, are given their rights to choose their leaders by means of making sure that everyone who wants to register in Zimbabwe is registered. We want more registration points in the rural areas and in the cities and towns.
Tombopinda murimi rwamai takamirira vazavari veZANU-PF uyezve tine vamwe vanyarikani vachange vari muchirongwa. Tinoona zvakare kuti Russia irimo munyika. Pane ukama here pakati penyika dzakadai seRussia nebato renyu rinopikisa munyika, uyezve munoona Russia ichizouya ichibatsira here pane zvimwe zvirongwa zvemunyika?
Isu sevana veZimbabwe tinowirirana nenyika dzose, asi tinozongokatyamadza pakuwirirana kweRussia neZimbabwe nehurumende yedu ndekuti pane zvinhu zvakawanda zvinoitika zvisingaudzwe vanhu. Russia iri kupinda munyika ichipiwa maminerals, ichipiwa minda, ichipiwa chii, ichipiwa upfumi hweZimbabwe zvisingaende nekuparliament, zvisinganzwisisike nevanhu. Koyowo nyaya yeUkraine iri kuitika iyi. Zimbabwe ndio nyika yoga kuAfrica iri kumira neRussia. Tiri kuziva isu, takaona isu Russia ichipinda munyika yakazvimiririra yeUkraine, kwairi kuponda vanhu, kwairi kuuraya vanhu vasinei navo, vasina kuvadena. Saka kwatiri isusu zvinhu zvakaoma kuti munomira nenyika iri kuponda vanhu vakawanda kudaro, ichiita kuti vanhu vazhinji vabude muUkraine vachinotsvaga upoteri kune dzimwe nyika. Nekuti hurumende yedu iri hurumende inotya vanhu, inotya mitemo yenyika, yaisafanirwa kunge ichimira nenyika yakaita seRussia. Asi hazvitishamise, nekuti munyika macho muZimbabwe tinoona vanhu vari kungosungwa, vaJobskala vane mwedzi inokwana misere, vakangovharirwa zvisina tsarukano. More Blessing Ali akapondwa achiri mumochari iko zvino, haasati avigwa. Saka unongoona kuti kutyorwa kwekodzero dzevanhu nehurumende yeZimbabwe ndokuri kungoitwa zvakare neRussia kuUkraine. Saka kuwirirana kwavo kuripo ipapo paumondi nepakusachengetedza kodzero dzevanhu.
Asika ivo bato reZANU-PF nyanya vanoti hapana chakaipa kuti vawirirane nenyika dzakadai seRussia. Saka imi sei muchipokanawo nazvo?
Aiwazve, kana nyika ichienda kune yosvika munyika imomo yokonzeresa mhirizhonga, yoita hondo munyika imomo, youraya vanhu, youraya vana vasina mhosva, youraya madzimai asina mhosva, kusvika nyika iyo yava kutoparara, vanhu vagotiza izvozvi mamiliyoni mazhinji atiza kubva muUkraine achinogara kune dzimwe nyika. Hachisi chinhu chakanaka ichocho. Mitemo yenyika dzepasi rose yeUnited Nations haibvumire zvinhu zvakadaro. saka zvinhu zvekuti nyika inochengetedza kodzero dzevanhu sezvavanotaura vezimbabwe kuti vanochengetedza democracy, vanoita democracy, vanenge vasingafanirwi kudaro nekuti kutoita hondo nenyika imwe yakazvimiririra zvinhu zvakadaro hazvikurudzirwi.
Regai timboverenga zviri kutaurwa nevamwe. There's Tendai Biza who's saying you are right, there are a few registration points. The few that are there, they are saving people very slowly. He's talking about your comment on the issue of registration for registering to vote. That's on VOA. Shona, that's one of our followers there. But thank you to those that are streaming live with us right now. We're still waiting for our guest Xavier Zavere of ZANU-PF, and we also had Ms. Shalinche Kenya of Stand Foundation, but unfortunately she had to pull out at the last minute due to unforeseen circumstance. But thank you so much, and we are waiting to just hear from our callers also, you know, who are very valuable to us. But ndodzoka kwamuri vadzokora takamirira vaZavare kuti saka zvamira zvakadai munoona zvichizofamba sei mune ramangwana pakati pekudyidzana apa peAmerica uyezve neZimbabwe uyezve neRussia neZimbabwe.
Isi tenge tichitongokurudzira kuti ivo vezano vanogara vachirakasha America vachiti vane zvavari kuda kukonzeresa muZimbabwe, asi vachikanganwa rubatsiro ruri kubva kuAmerica. PaCovid takanyanya kubatsirwa zvikuru sei neAmerica pane nyika dzose. PaAIDS chaipo HIV AIDS rubatsiro rwazhinji rwakabva kuAmerica. Iko zvino zvakare tikuona America ichiratidza kuti inotoda kudyidzana nehurumende yeZimbabwe. Hurumende yeZimbabwe ndio inozongotanga kuvhunduka kana yakubvunzwa kuti ko zvakati izvi muri kuzviitirei, muri kuponderei vanhu, muri kusungirei vanhu zvisiri pamutemo. Chavanongoda vanhu vehurumende yeZANU-PF kutora mari kubva kunyika dzakasiyana siyana, kutambira rubatsiro runobva kunana America nana Britain nekunana Japan. Asi kana vakuzobvunzawo kuti ko muri kuitirei zvinhu izvi zvatakawirirana kuUnited Nations kuti hazvifanirwi kunge zvakuitwa kana zvifanirwa kunge zvichiitwa, ivo bva vati America yakashata kana kuti Britain yakashata. Saka ngavadzorere zviri kuitwa nevana veAmerica nehurumende yeAmerica. Hanzi ukama ugasvaga kana America ichiita zvairi kuita ichitibata zvakanaka, isusuwo ngatichiitawo tiite ushamwari hwakanaka naAmerica nedzimwe nyika.
We also understand that later on, we understand that the Ambassador Scott will be meeting with the opposition. Is your party going to meet with Ambassador Scott, and what are the issues that you're going to articulate?
Yeah, we have always met with any forward-thinking, democratic thinking people that speak to what we believe in, which is rule of law and democracy. So I'm not sure who they are going to meet, but I know obviously when they meet, they will discuss things that have to do with strengthening the institutions like ZEC. Obviously, they will be thankful and grateful for the support that the Americans have been giving and they've promised to give to strengthen democratic institutions. I know obviously they will also talk about that help being extended to the people, because the biggest thing that we have seen in Zimbabwe is Zimbabwe gets millions of dollars from foreign nations, and that money never trickles down to the ordinary person in the streets. It ends up in some people's pockets. So we will continue to call upon the Zimbabwean government to put to good use any money that is being put towards ZEC, any money that is being put towards the 2023 elections. That money must be felt by the ordinary person in Zimbabwe, in particular to the issues to do with voter registration, voter education. As we are speaking right now,
Mr. Chokora, I think your line is breaking up. Your line is breaking up a little bit, so please hold on while we try to fix your line, and I'll go to one of our guests, Professor Elliot Masocha, who's an economist. Welcome to the program. We see that the U.S. is in the country. They've sent a delegation, and also Russia is in the country. They've sent a delegation. What's your take?
Well, my take is that this is the most important time in Zimbabwean politics. And we can see by that move of these superpowers that as we go to elections, they all want to angle themselves, with the Zimbabwean government, talk to the opposition as well, such that they are going to be assured that elections are going to be free and fair. Because when we look at any country's economy, it all depends with the politics of the country. So that's why they are saying, well, we are not going to wait until elections are over. We are going to go now and hear what the government of Zimbabwe is saying about their preparation, for elections, how elections are going to be held, and the conditions on the ground for them to see, for themselves how things are going to work out. Because we should never forget that politicians are the ones who are the lawmakers. They come up with laws that controls, business and everything else. So they couldn't wait. And as far as I know, Russia and the USA, they have different approaches. They have different relationships. And the time period they form those relationships are also different as well. Mm-hmm. We know
maybe if I may just come in there and just say, what are the major differences between the two nations from your observation as an economist and a professor?
Yeah, the major difference is that China and Russia, that is in there with its officials, they have a policy of not interfering with a country's governance and everything the government is doing, whereas the United States' goal is for human development, human rights for everybody, which is key to any economic development for any, world. That's why I say, Russia and China, their interest really is not to improve the economic situation of Zimbabwe, but the economic situation of themselves. Because if they're not interfering with how people are governed, so how are they going to fully participate in the economy of the country? Because those poor people are the ones who are the key consumers to drive any country's economy. And if they are not ruled well, if they are not governed well, not given their full opportunities, then we are not talking about anything in terms of developing our economy.
Thank you. Thank you so much there, Professor Elliot Masocha, who is speaking to us from here in the United States in Ohio. But I understand one of our guests, Xavier Zawere of ZANU-PF, is now with us. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Tinoona kuti pari zvino munyika mune madelegation ari kubva kuRussia nekuAmerica. Imi munoti nenhumwa idzi dzauya munyika?
Well, my delegation from Russia is not necessarily a political delegation. It is more of an economic delegation. They are business people who have come to see how we can work together, how they can invest in our country, and how they can create opportunities for those who want exports to Russia. So there is a huge difference between them and Roger Scott, who is a U.S. Other secretary in charge of the African desk. Mm-hmm. Who, of course, by the way, wasn't really invited by the Zimbabwean government, but decided to give himself an invitation. What he has really come for, with no problem, of course, engaging with the Americans. In any case, the foreign policy for our country at the moment is that we want to be friends to all and an enemy to none. And in that drive, we have no problem engaging with the Americans. In any case, the background to it is our country was invited to the U.S.-Africa Summit, and Minister Shava, who is the Minister for Foreign Affairs and International Trade, represented the country there.
So if I may just come in there and say, are you then saying that the Russian delegation was invited by Zimbabwe and the U.S. envoy was not?
Right. So if you look at it, the Russian government is coming on the background. You may recall that we've had several visits to, even for a start, Russia and Belarus are allies and friends. And our president has had engagement with Belarus. And of course, Belarus and Russia pretty much share intelligence, share information on the beauty of investing around the world. But also, our First Lady has been in Russia before, and we've got a new ambassador in Russia as well from Zimbabwe, who have actually invited this and extended and advised them to say, look, you might as well go on the ground to actually see the investment opportunities or the business opportunities that are there. Whereas the U.S. envoy is coming on the back. In fact, it's quite interesting that he's coming to engage with Zimbabwe, and the next day his president is extending economic sanctions on Zimbabwe. You can see that they are not coming to engage in an open, honest way to build a relationship, but rather they are coming as a big brother. And you could see after the press conference when he's talking about our elections, talking about this, basically our domestic policy, which has and should have got nothing to do with America. We don't get involved in their electoral processes, even though we may question some of the things that they do in the various states of the United States of America itself as a country. But he's got the audacity to tell us how we should behave, even with non-governmental organizations, whom we are legislating. This is a domestic policy, just like America legislates against terrorism. Some of their anti-terrorism
Mr. Zavare,
laws
if I may just come in there. If I may just come in there and get Mr. Jokora to just comment in brief on what Mr. Zavare is saying.
We know that Mr. Zavare gets excited when it comes to the USA. He casts against the USA, and yet the USA, is supporting Zimbabwe and Zimbabwean institutions. This is the USA we are talking about. They don't invite themselves. They get invited. They would not have been welcomed to Zimbabwe if they had invited themselves. It's actually an insult to the USA to say that they were not invited. I don't think his bosses are happy to hear him say what he's saying. But anyway, just to go back to the money that will be coming to the USA, that is being castigated by Mr. Zavare. We want Mr. Zavare to go and tell his bosses to ensure that the money is used for voter purposes.
Thank you, Mr. Jokora. Let me give Mr. Jokora, let me give Mr. Zavare just a few minutes because we only have 1 minute left. Mr. Zavare, pin ratings weanzi mari iri kuuya iyo ichabva kuAmerica ngaishandiswe mumazvo munoti
See, the problem is you invite me to this program to discuss with people who are not serious.
aiwa ngatingoti gaga vaZavare kuitira kuti tipedze.
Nyaya iripo panapa ndeyekuti I said this before. Hakuna nyika inopa imwe nyika mari without my interest and the need to advance its interest. It is very clear. Scott himself has come out, castigating our bill against non-governmental organizations, whom we are trying to manage. We are not banning them, we are managing them. It is a right that we have as a country to do so. Just like America has got a right to pass anti-terrorism laws or all sorts of funny laws that they pass in their country. We have got the right to protect our interests.
Thank you, Mr. Zavare and Mr. Jokora. Thank you both, gentlemen. Unfortunately, time is not on our side. Just when it was getting interesting, thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. It is now time for us to really say you have a very good night. And for those that were live streaming with us, we also thank you. I'm Marvelous Mhlanga-Nyahuye in Washington.